We would like to begin our meeting tonight. Thank you so much for joining us for the Climate Reality San Fernando Valley chapter meeting on April 8th. This is our monthly chapter meeting, which we do on the second Tuesday of every month. We have a very special guest speaker tonight. I'm really excited about this one. Sheila Morovati is here from habitsofwaste.org. It's going to be a great talk about her campaign 8 Meals for getting people to eat 8 meals vegan a week in order to reduce their agricultural emissions by 40%. But before we turn things over to Sheila, we're going to have just a bit of chapter business. As always, we'd like to begin with a land acknowledgement. If you didn't see the news today, I wanted to share that today LAUSD actually approved a land acknowledgement, which they will be reading at every Board of Education meeting in the district. They had representatives come to speak to the board from the Tataviam tribe, and it was quite emotional, I think, and the district has agreed to enact a land acknowledgement provided by the tribe at the beginning of every meeting. So we, of course, like to do the same here at Climate Reality. Tonight's land acknowledgement is going to be read by a member of ours, Kat Garcia, who is an active member of the EJ-RON pod, that's Environmental Justice and Rights of Nature pod. Kat is a recent graduate of TerraDo's Learning for Action Fellowship. She's a member of the Global Alliance for the Rights of Nature and a member of Sustainable Ocean Alliance's program to combat deep sea mining. Kat, would you do us the honor of reading our land acknowledgement tonight?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Sharon. Thank you, everyone. And as mentioned, a land acknowledgement is a formal statement that recognizes and respects Indigenous peoples as stewards of the land and the enduring relationship that exists between Indigenous peoples and their traditional territories. It acknowledges the history that's been brought to us to reside on this land, the colonialism that's present in our current systems, and it calls on us to be mindful of our own present participation in it. We acknowledge that we are on the traditional territory of the Tongva, Quiche, Tataviam, and Chumash tribes.
Thank you, Kat. And of course, if anyone is calling in from outside the valley, those are the valley tribes. But if you are on unceded territory of a different tribe, please feel free to mention them in the chat so that we can honor them as well. All right, moving on, I would like to kick it over to our outreach coordinator, Vivian, to invite you to join our chapter. Vivian, can you unmute yourself and talk a bit about how to join?
Sure. Hi, everybody, and welcome to everyone, and especially to anybody that's new. And once you're in our meetings, you're on our email list. But we're part of the bigger Climate Reality. It's international. It was founded by Vice President Al Gore, and they're everywhere. They're all over the globe and doing amazing work. And when you sign up on their website to be an official member of our chapter, so they know that you belong to us, then you get not only our great information, but you get their great information. And you find out, for instance, when there's trainings to become climate reality leaders, you find out what's going on all over the world. You find out maybe areas of work that we don't have that you want to get involved in. So I have just put the link in the chat, and you just fill out that form and just make sure that you mark for the chapter that you're joining the San Fernando Valley chapter. So if you haven't done this already, I invite you to just do that. It doesn't cost any money. And now you're a member of us and the big Climate Reality.
I'm going to pass things over to Michelle, our vice chair, so that she can introduce tonight's program.
Thank you so much. If everyone wouldn't mind muting their line, that would be terrific. I'm so excited tonight to introduce Sheila Morovati. She's the president and founder of the nonprofit Habits of Waste, which focuses on creating collective change and impactful policies with a focus on waste reduction for a healthier, more sustainable future. Known for many innovative campaigns such as Cut Out Cutlery, campaign, Sheila spearheaded the historic ban of plastic straws and cutlery in the city of Malibu, and then convinced Uber Eats, Postmates, DoorDash, and Grubhub to globally change the default settings in their applications so no one receives plastic cutlery unless requested. This led to the passing of the California State Bill AB 1276, among dozens of other cities and states. Sheila is focused on protecting the planet through a collective societal effort of individuals making slight changes to their lifestyle while pressuring lawmakers and large corporations simultaneously. She's also the author of a wonderful book called The Imperfect Environmentalist, which I have right here, How to Reduce Waste and Create Change for a Better Planet. She's the founder of a second nonprofit called the crayoncollection.org, which already expanded to 50 states and 10 countries since the launch in 2013. Tonight, she's going to be discussing how her 8 meals campaign and how eating 8 plant-based meals per week can significantly reduce your carbon footprint. So I'm happy to introduce and welcome Sheila Morovati.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so very much for inviting us. Myself and our executive director, Ariane Garcia, are here tonight, and we are really excited to share the work we do with such a like-minded group of people. I think that your organization is one that is really moving mountains, and we are just really happy to be working with you all again. So with that, I would love to ask whoever has the deck to please pop it up and we can get started. Just a little bit of background on myself. My background is actually in sociology. I graduated from UCLA many moons ago, and sociology was always fascinating for me because I felt that there was this like collective mindset that we all have as a society, and how to shift and sway people is very curious for me. And I realized that in environmentalism, that's something that isn't as often talked about, is the collective mindset. And so I'm just going to plug that in the back of your minds as we go through this presentation, because this is what the work I do as much as I can has that through line, is how do we shift a collective mindset. So saving the planet one meal at a time, one bite at a time, all of it had to do with a revelation I had about how important it is for us to decrease our consumption of animal products. So if we could go to the next slide. To give you guys, again, a little bit of background, Crayon Collection was the first organization I founded, had something to do with food, actually. My daughter was the pickiest eater. She was just constantly asking to go to California Pizza Kitchen. When she would go there, we would magically see her eat everything. And it was a very simple and, funny enough, vegan meal. It was always soybeans, pasta, and avocado. And as a new mom, I was so nervous. I just kept taking her there, sometimes 2 or 3 times a week. And each time we would go, we would receive a pack of 4 crayons. And sometimes those crayons never even made it out onto the table, yet they'd still get thrown in the trash with the end of the food remnants and the food scraps. And it just bothered me so much to see this wastefulness in front of my kid, and having her become a part of this kind of mindless society of consumption. And so I started this organization to get restaurants to donate those left behind crayons to underserved schools within a mile of each restaurant. Later, we started to implement art education resources for those schools that are most of the time considered Title I, where over half the population lives under the poverty line. It was in that same restaurant, though, that I kept seeing the plastic straws that are on everybody's table. 2 people could have at least 6 straws at times. And I kept wondering, did anyone even ask for those? Where are these straws even coming from? And of course, there was no way to recycle those. So I spearheaded the world's first plastic straw and cutlery ban, which was in the city of Malibu in 2018. And I specifically chose Malibu over LA or some bigger city because we always want to go for low-hanging fruit that is going to shift that collective mindset more easily. And the city of Malibu was a place that my cousins in Italy were obsessed with. And I knew that if they're interested in Malibu and what Malibu does, the world might hear about it. And in fact, I was right, because it was one of those moments in time that really was like the straw that broke the camel's back, essentially, for so many more of these types of plastic straw bans to coexist with the campaigns that were being had with Lonely Whale and all these other great organizations trying to decrease single-use plastic consumption. And that's my son right there protesting against plastic straws. So we can go to the next slide. So that's a little bit of my background, and that's when Habits of Waste was born. And here's a perfect video to segue into what Habits of Waste is and who we are. Here at Habits of Waste, we believe that small actions can add up to very big change. No matter how small the first step is, we always start somewhere. In 2018, we spearheaded the world's first plastic straw and cutlery ban, which was in the city of Malibu, and it has been credited for the worldwide ripple effect that came afterwards. Next came our Cutout Cutlery campaign. We ended up convincing Uber Eats, Postmates, Grubhub, and DoorDash to provide a new default so that users only get plastic cutlery upon request. To date, we have saved over 1 billion pieces of plastic cutlery thanks to state laws in California, Colorado, Washington, New York City, and many, many more. Clean water is a human right. LA Green Teen was our campaign that discovered the dilapidated water fountains that schools in Los Angeles were expecting kids to drink out of. Thanks to a whole army of people, we were able to convince the state of California to invest over $238 million to provide these kids with clean drinking water fountains. Our Ship Naked and Ship Greener campaign launched to convince Amazon to use less packaging, less plastic, less everything. And what happened? They complied. Our Lights, Camera, Plastic campaign came next, and we convinced major studios in Hollywood to stop showing single-use plastic on screen. Reusables are the way forward. Join us as we expand into Lights, Camera, Plastic Sports Edition, where we're getting athletes to drink sustainably and continuing to move forward with more sustainable behaviors on screen. Every action matters. Continue to support our efforts. We make the difference. Join us today, contribute, participate, be a part of this. Our planet depends on all of us. Thank you. So just some highlights about the work we do. We try really hard to partner with as large of an institution as we possibly can. So we've been working with the World Economic Forum, the United Nations, Oxford, you'll see a little later on, University of Michigan, partnering up with TEDx in Glasgow. A lot of opportunities to try to spread the word and really shift the, again, collective mindset with, leveraging the resources that these huge organizations have. We come up with kind of catchy ideas that make sense, and these thankfully these companies and groups support us, and we are able to use that opportunity to expand. And right now, like working within Hollywood, for example, it's not just about the plastics anymore. We've expanded that into bringing in more plant-based meals, showing new sustainable behaviors, and getting every single studio on board to showcase these types of behaviors that we're suggesting that people use as swaps is very key for, shifting, again, the entire climate change movement, because so many people think it's just impossible and too big. So we'll switch over to the next slide, please. So back to the food. So essentially, when I started this whole campaign, I had this kind of aversion, I would say, to animal products. I always grew up with that. I kind of felt like it's not fair to the animals. It's not really something I enjoy eating. But somehow I was raised in a Persian family, and everybody was like, nope, that's just the way it is. We have one pot dinners, just eat around the meat. And I kept trying to eat around the meat and feeling still not good about it. The truth is that the numbers are there. The reality is that we all know that if we don't participate in this issue of animal products, animal production, and raising especially cattle, we are going to destroy our planet. I think that there's some facts and figures here that are kind of remarkable to know that these are the culprits of so much of our climate change, and many people don't realize that it's not an all or nothing solution. So we'll go to the next slide, please. Everyone will have this deck afterwards, so you could read a little bit more about it. But knowing that 41% of deforestation is because of climate change is one of the facts that I'd really like everyone to hold on to through this presentation, because that is the main focus of where this whole thing started. So let's go on to this one, please. If Western cultures were to eat 40% less animal products, we create enough carbon offset to combat climate change, period. Usually we eat about 21 meals, so 40% of that's 8 meals. Eat 8 plant-based meals a week. See how that feels. We created this cool app where there's quizzes, there's ways you can take photographs, you could talk to your friends, you can share your progress, you can find really cool recipes, plug them into your calendar, and then in the end, you track how much of a carbon offset you've created. I think this is a door opener for the imperfect environmentalist, because we don't want just a handful of people doing it perfectly. We want a lot of people doing it imperfectly. So 8 meals began because, once again, coming from the background I had and knowing that I'm just not really being successful at this idea of going plant-based. So of course, I'm not living at my parents' house anymore. I'm on my own. And I'm like, okay, now I can go plant-based. And this is just the decision I want to make for myself personally. Well, it somehow seemed to be that there was just this, like, either you're on the bandwagon of veganism or you're not. And at times something would come up and it would just be maybe like I don't know, a dinner party and there's, appetizers out, or there's something in the food that's not perfectly plant-based and it has maybe some butter or cheese or whatever it might be. And I felt like I failed. And every single time that sense of failure would come to me, I kept on realizing that, why does there have to be this sense of failure with food and with what we eat and with trying to do better for our planet? And I started to do a deep dive, and I started researching and researching and researching. And suddenly I came across a study that was done by the University of Michigan and Tulane University, talking about how if Western cultures ate just 40% less animal products, then we have enough of a carbon offset to fully combat climate change. And there's all this proof and math and formulas and everything in there that you can definitely study. It's linked in our website as well. And I thought, this is incredible. And imagine if the 97% of the population who are not vegan, do not identify as vegan, and are eating all the things, just knew that if they make that small shift into 8 plant-based meals a week, then that would be an incredible change for all of us to know that it doesn't take all or nothing to do this. So I actually contacted Dr. Martin Heller and I told him about 8 meals, and I said, I want to package this study up into something tangible that people can actually participate in and do and feel good about. So we recognize that we eat 21 meals per week. So on average, 40% less is 8 plant-based meals. And so together, he was the one that told me that, that's actually the equivalent carbon offset for a family of 4 as driving a hybrid car for a year. So it was really eye-opening for me. And then BuzzFeed did a video on it, and we were like on our way. And it was interesting because this concept of eating 40% less animal products seems so foreign to everybody, because you have a label, you're either vegan or you're not. So where do we fit in here? So we'll go to the next slide, please. So this was the study that I was just mentioning here, but just like a little bit more detail of it. But it's really just the amount of CO2 we're offsetting per year. So a family of 4 eating 8 plant-based meals a week is 2012 CO2 offset per year. And then look at the numbers for the family of 4 driving a hybrid car. It's pretty remarkable, the impact that it makes. We could go to the next slide, please. So essentially, back to where we started about shifting the mindset. So there's a few issues here. One is that people don't really recognize the correlation between meat and animal products and what's happening to the planet. So that's topic number 1 to uncover. I personally got very eager to change and make this happen when I saw that the Amazon was on fire. And I realized that people were like, here, random little posts here and there. This was many years ago, saying your hamburgers are burning down the lungs of the earth. And I thought, where did that come from? Well, the truth is 71% of deforestation that's happening right now is for cattle farming. And if it's not for the cattle itself, then it's for creating the feed for the cattle. So all that deforestation, all of that is causing an incredible amount of pressure on our planet, not to mention the methane gases that are coming from the cattle. You know, you guys are obviously very aware of this, but we're talking about what does the public perceive as the issue. They're saying, oh, those environmentalists are coming again, telling us we can't eat our hamburgers, and they're just trying to be, you know, animal. They're just, it's not just for the animals. It's for so many bigger issues. I write about this all in my book, and really just talking a lot about how much of this impacts the planet and how much we are, you know, destroying the land around us. So 40 million tons of CO2 comes from cows. That is 3.4% of our global emissions, just to give you an idea of how much impact we're making here. So let's go to the next slide, please. The next issue is whether or not plant-based foods are good for you. So many people believe that going on a plant-based diet means you're going to become iron deficient, you're going to lose your hair, you're going to be unhealthy, you're going to have so many problems. So again, educating people that even if it's just a partially plant-based campaign, it is a wonderful starting point to your own body, your own health, decreasing cholesterol, live longer. There's so many studies that talk about how much good heart health, good overall health is part of a plant-based diet for sure, but even a partially plant-based diet. So we were able to get a very, very well-respected doctor from UCLA to talk about this with us. And she even writes about it in her book, Hype, talking about how important it is to provide your body with the proteins and all the things that it needs through plant-based products, and that it is possible. So we can shift over to the next slide, please. And then it's about how do we get this into people's lifestyles. So what we started to do was when we began with telling people, okay, start eating 8 plant-based meals, all of a sudden everyone was looking at us like, okay, well, where do I begin? And we were like, well, just eat 8 plant-based meals. And we realized that actually it's a lot harder than that for people to just jump into something new like this. So we decided to first create a challenge, and we asked people, can you take the challenge to eat 8 plant-based meals and then download this free app that we created, that we were very lucky to create, that really tracks your meals and allows you to see your progress over time with how much CO2 you're cutting back on, and also to see the offsets that you're creating, and also to show you whole foods, plant-based recipes that are not expensive. Another misconception that we had to debunk is that plant-based foods are extremely expensive. It's only for the wealthy. This is not a lifestyle that people can have that are not wealthy. And the truth is, we went specifically and found many delicious recipes that really bank on lentils, they bank on rice, they bank on things that are not expensive. And that was the other thing, that we wanted a family of 4 to be able to eat for under $20. And that many of these recipes are in there, and they're coming from places that everyone is familiar with. Ina Garden, Jamie Oliver, all these huge chefs that have some plant-based options, and we've kind of put them all together to make this as exciting and interesting to people as possible. We could go to the next slide, please. So this is a little bit more about what the app looks like. It gives you a little impact calculator. It reminds you, have you had your 8 plant-based meals? You pop your meals into your calendar, so you know, okay, lunch, dinner, breakfast this day and that day, and this will make my 8 for the end of the week. Puts in your recipes so that you can go in and purchase the things that you need for it. We tried to make it as easy and as simple as possible. So this is a very simple and easy tool that is available in the App Store for free. So if anyone would like to download it, I highly recommend it. It's under Habits of Waste. So next slide, please. This is, again, examples of some of your individual impact. And what's really important here is when you start to see the ripple effect of telling a friend, telling your coworkers, challenging your business to have, plant-based meals for everybody when they do, let's say, group meal or something like that, that starts to increase very quickly. And so we worked with the Honest Company, for example, a few years ago, and every Friday they would provide meals for their entire staff. And after doing the presentation, they decided that every Friday the meal was going to be plant-based only. And that was going to be part of their ESG goals at the end of the year, that they start to gather this information and start to see what was it that they could do differently. And that was, again, an easy shift because they were able to reduce so much CO2 from this environment just by providing a plant-based meal to their staff. So that was something they were doing anyway. So they just shifted from one restaurant to another to cater it. And it was like a very simple lift. Let's go into the next slide, please. And that's the difference right there of a corporation of 200 people participating versus you by yourself, your family of 4, and then getting some, family and friends. So the ripple effect here about this type of imperfect environmental effort is really, really remarkable. So I highly recommend, this whole tell a friend concept. And that's why I love this organization that you guys are so much, is that it is all about that and getting people involved and engaged in so many chapters and everybody talking about it and doing it. And, it's just wanting, for us, 8 Meals is about providing a resource and a solution for everyone to know that not only can you do this, but here's the science and the math behind it to prove to you that your effort is worth it and your effort is making an impact. So let's go to the next slide, please. I think one of the most famous plant-based, leaders is Billie Eilish and her mom, Maggie Baird. They're wonderful supporters of ours. We support them. We work with them often, and they are trying to change that norm and change that mindset around being a plant-based, advocate. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to be a certain type or a certain way. It's just about doing your part as best you can. I had one testimonial that I'll never forget, which was a guy that was the son of a butcher, and he lived all the way in Ireland, and he contacted us and he had heard about this challenge, and he said, I started doing the 8 meals, and then I started to do 9, and then I did 10, and before I knew it, my stomach aches that he had had for years were starting to go away. And he just carried on until he was fully plant-based. And he lost, I think, something like 70 pounds, did not have to take any of his medications anymore. And really, it changed his life. And that's really wonderful for me to hear. And we're helping the planet in a way that's so just profound. So I think, again, it's not all or nothing. Start where you can. If you really want to hit the mark that, these scientists are saying we need to hit, go with the 8 plant-based meals as your starting point. You, believe it or not, you start to get into a rhythm, and then it's not difficult anymore at all. Let's go to the next slide, please. So we hope that this idea of growing the campaign and being a ripple effect will become something that you guys will work with us on as well. If you're interested in sharing it, if you're interested in talking about people, participating in this within your coalitions, it's again a very happy and easy place to get started. There's no shame, there's no blame. You can try it, see how it feels. And then before you know it, there's opportunities to continue to grow this. So we do actually have something called the Carbon Offset Challenge, where we challenge individuals to change their daily behaviors, and eating 8 plant-based meals is one of those listed in the challenge. So that's available on our website as well, that you can participate in our whole Carbon Offset Challenge if you'd like. Let's go to the next slide, please. And then there's my book, and it's really about staying in touch with us. You can subscribe to our newsletter, participate in one of our campaigns. We have many, and it takes just a few moments. You just pop your email in and basically click once, and it goes out to all the different companies that we're trying to influence in some way or another, just like we did with the cutlery. That's how we got Uber Eats and Postmates and Grubhub and DoorDash on board. And then we used that to leverage the state laws in California, and then it moved on for that. So really, it's the book gives you the whole story of how I did it. And as a person that really never expected to be considered an environmentalist or a change maker, I just graduated with a degree in sociology and just have a lot of passion for the work. I share every last secret of what it takes to do it, the books I've read, the things I've tried to do to make people feel good about this effort with me and not feel like they're going against something, rather being a part of something. And even the biggest naysayers, I often talk to them and they warm up to the idea because it's not about you're this or that, or you're failing or you're succeeding. It's like, let's move in a positive direction that all humanity really, I think, wants. And I'll just share one more tidbit that I think really solidified that for me recently, which was I went on a trip to Japan for my kids' spring break, and I've never visually been able to witness people basking in the glory of nature. These cherry blossoms were out, and you had people all over the place with their cameras just filming these flowers and these beautiful blossoms. And it's in that moment that I realize, like, all the work that we're doing here is for that, is for people who truly, as a humanity, care deeply about this planet, but they just may not feel that they're allowed to be a real participant in the environmental movement because they don't have that stamp or that place to say, I belong here. And that is my mission, to make it as inclusive as possible and give people an opportunity to find joy in those cherry blossoms, yet also realize the impact that they're making on a daily basis with everyday choices. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions or stick around for anything else that you guys might have.
Sheila, that was so wonderful. And I just have to say, I'm so excited that you're speaking here tonight. And I can't tell you enough how much I loved your book. I mean, everyone should really pick up a copy of it because it told all the secrets. It's like, how does one person make a change? And that's what we're always asking ourselves, like, how can we make a change? And I loved your 8 meals, and you have so many wonderful campaigns. So I was just going to ask you, what inspired you to write the book? Was it just after you had done so much?
I think people kept telling me, well, like, how did you do this particular thing? And I was like, doing the plastic straw ban in Malibu, for example, that really wasn't that hard. It was just knowing that you have 3 minutes to speak at any city council meeting. And learning that little bit of information empowered me to say, okay, well, if I go with my daughter and my son, they'll also speak. So that gives us like 9 minutes. And that was in the city of Malibu. Some other cities are less. Just knowing that we have so many tools at our fingertips to take advantage of and be heard, that's what really inspired me to tell people, like, little tricks like that you actually have that moment that's provided to us each as members of this city, or that whatever city you live in. Take advantage of it, speak out on something, and bring in don't just talk about a problem and complain, bring in a solution, start to make the change, give them something to kind of sink their teeth into. Those city council members are always looking for ways to create change and sort of shine and make themselves feel like, I made an impact, I did something good. So if you go in, use your 2 minutes, have a little suggestion as a solution to the problem you're bringing up. And that's what really inspired me. It wasn't that specific case, but that's what the whole book is about. It's about these little things that we can actually take advantage of, and telling everybody, because if we could make, everyone know the power they hold within themselves, imagine the changes that can come about.
I just thought it was so creative. Just as you did each campaign, there was just a lot of creative problem solving. Like, something would come up and it's like, okay. And it feels like having your background in sociology really did help with that. There's a lot of observational science, but for instance, when you went to the Malibu City Council meeting, you had a call to action. Do you want to talk a little bit just what your call to action was with the documentary? And
yeah, so that particular time that I went into the city of Malibu, I didn't go in saying like, okay, let's go ban straws. I knew that there had to be kind of like a warm-up period. And the warm-up period for me was education. And that's kind of where I decided that, just like we did with 8 meals, there has to be some education in order to make change. And there was a documentary film called Straws, and that had come up with a friend who said, hey, I really want to screen this movie. I think people would really like to know the impact all these single-use plastics are having on our planet. And so I said, rather than just showing the film at a theater or something like that, let's use it to make change. So I actually went into city council and asked to screen the film in partnership with the city. And so the city allowed that, and we used City Hall, and we filled the room with all the community members. Then after the screening was done, I went back to city council with my kids and we requested the plastic straw and cutlery ban to be implemented. And at that point, because the community knew about it, was aware of all the, detrimental effects of single-use plastic, it was a lot easier even at that point for the city council members to say, okay, this makes sense. So starting small, taking off a little bit at a time, and really just trying to chip away slowly but surely in the right direction was my strategy.
That was awesome. Do you have any tips for those who want to advocate for change within the workplace or local government?
I think especially in the workplace, it's always from my understanding of the corporations I've spoken to, and I've spoken to a lot of corporations, it feels to me that every single one of them at this point has pressure to do better. And if they get a suggestion internally from one of their own team members of let's say, let's start doing plant-based meals for the team lunch, those are ways, and then showing them that you will reach more of your goals, the end of year, the types of things that they have to produce for all of their the board members and everyone to see that they're on the right track towards environmental goals, then they're sort of more open to it. And again, going in with a solution rather than just a complaint is the key thing. And it becomes a very big ripple effect right there, getting everybody in your company on board with, just simply for BuzzFeed, for example, we had a huge event and we decided not to rent the cutlery, but to actually purchase the cutlery. And then we gave it to BuzzFeed. They had done so many videos for us. So we contributed that as part of our thank you to them, so that when they had staff lunch, they had reusable cutlery available to them by the hundreds. And they had dishwashers there. They had the manpower to handle it. It's just that no one had ever taken the step to purchase cutlery. So that was something that we did. So just any little thing that you can do to kind of lend a hand to get the wheels in motion a little bit better. I think that you may think other people think the way you do. You may feel like, oh, well, everybody knows that. Obviously, there should be reusable cutlery. I guess it's not there for a reason. I think we should just delete that mindset and just go in with the positive change. And then, if someone says, hey, why is that here? We don't want that, then deal with it then. But bring on positivity, bring on something joyful for everybody. Oh, wow, look at this. Someone brought that over. How nice.
And then you spoke about BuzzFeed, and I know in your book you talked about a number of videos you did that went viral. I was just wondering what role you think storytelling and books like yours play in shifting the environmental norms.
That was one of the most important pieces, because how can we get into the mindset of a full society? What are the ways that we can do that? I often think about how it must have been before social media and back in the days when, everybody started to create massive change, social movements without this tool of social media and easily picking up your phone and getting all this information, downloaded in your mind. So it's a massive piece of the puzzle. And that's why I think, 8 meals specifically is a tough one, because there's so many different voices that are out there saying you must eat animal products, you must eat protein, protein, protein. And it feels like we're up against a very big challenge on this one because there's so many opinions. The single-use plastics, we can very easily see, like that sea turtle that had the plastic straw stuck up its nose, that had such a huge impact on humanity, because we could very easily see the impact of our pesky single-use plastic straws on the environment around us. But with the plant-based foods, how do we shift the mindset without something visible like that, And so that's where a lot of times you see organizations like PETA really shining light on the harm to animals, and that does turn people off from meat, but only for a period of time. And then they start to forget about it and they'll go back. My goal is for the longevity of the impact to be made for lifestyle change for good.
Can you share a few of the most impactful small actions that someone could take in their daily life to support the environment?
The number one impactful action is to eat more plant-based meals. There's nothing more in the world that you can do than eat a plant-based meal to make that happen. There's just so much science around that. And then, of course, any other way that you can reduce your carbon footprint is key. Carpooling, doing things like, walking, biking, all those things are very helpful as well. But it is really the most important action any individual can take is to eat more plant-based meals.
Absolutely.
And then
How do
tell
you,
a friend about it.
You know what? It's so funny. I've told so many people about your book because we read your book in our book club last week, and I used your book club guide, and it was just wonderful just to spur some conversations. But I shared it with my 81-year-old mother today, and she's like, "Oh, will you bring the book over?" I go to her house every Friday night, so she's like, "Bring the book." And some of my coworkers, they downloaded the app, which is really a great app. It's super fun and easy to navigate, so highly recommend going to the website and downloading that. I was just wondering what you would say to people who just feel a little bit overwhelmed or paralyzed by climate guilt.
Yeah, climate anxiety is actually a very real thing. And we've been working closely actually with the Department of Climate Communications at Yale. And one of the most important things that is kind of the answer to climate anxiety is taking action. And it can be, again, my whole opinion about it is it doesn't have to be the biggest action. Just start somewhere, anywhere, even if it's teeny tiny. Grab that grocery bag when you're going to the store, maybe shop at the farmer's market, more often than not. Whatever small actions you can take. And actually in my book, I put hundreds of tips for how you can start making, taking action in that way. Even the littlest things, all the way to like making your own lip scrub. We just, DIYing things, putting vinegar and water together in a little squirt bottle to clean your home, not having to buy all that chemicals and plastic and everything. But the antidote to climate anxiety is taking action, and you start to feel better and better and better, and you get your power back. However, that being said, the onus shouldn't just be on us to take actions like these little actions, but to also use our voice, use our opportunity to put pressure at the top, put pressure on our legislators, put pressure on these huge corporations. And so that is the other piece of the puzzle that we talk about in Imperfect Environmental, is that it's a top-down, bottom-up effect, that we have to take action. We have to set a new expectation and a new norm and put pressure at the top so that we can create change. Otherwise, it's just one-sided on any of it will not work.
Absolutely.
That has been historical in all social movements.
Mhm. What would you say, Sheila, gives you hope when the environmental news feels bleak?
And it does feel bleak right now. What gives me hope is watching all those people filming the cherry blossoms. That as a humanity, this is a natural thing that we need to care for our planet, and just inspiring those people all around us to know that this planet needs us to wake up. And so I have hope in humanity. I have hope that we are here to not destroy the planet. We are here to live our lives, but to educate everybody to understand that there are parts of our daily lives that we don't see anymore that are so harmful, and to shine light on those things, and hopefully get people to kind of shift back to a place where it's not as wasteful, not as harmful.
And just to let everyone know, Descanso Gardens has the cherry blossoms in bloom right now. I was just there on Sunday. It's fabulous. So if you can make your way over to Pasadena area, it's just wonderful to see. Sheila, if every reader took one thing away from your book, what do you hope it would be?
That they have so much power, that you are not powerless. You are not here sort of to just throw your hands up in the air and whatever the new legislation out there says in the White House, that this is what matters now. No, we stay on track, we keep going, and we have power, a lot of power, and we just have to use that power.
Fantastic. Do we have any questions in the chat, Diana or Sharon? I'll kick it back.
Yeah, I think we have a few more. My big question, Sheila, is what's your next target?
It's a great question, Sharon. I feel very, very passionate right now, a little bit for the Pacific Palisades, which is where I'm from. Right now, there is a hole in my heart for my community. And so I'm trying my best to find ways to support that through crayon collection and bringing back a little bit more hope there. So that is a very big personal mission I have. But aside from that, it's about making imperfect environmentalism feel like a normal concept to everyday people, not people that are in this cohort right here, but the people that don't feel that they belong in the environmental movement. That is my big mission, and that really allows me the chance to talk about all the things that we're doing, just like right now, and hopefully get people feeling like, hey, that's interesting, maybe I can do that too. And well, why not? That's not so much skin off my back to use this instead of that. That's really my big mission right now.
So I know that Lisa in the chat was asking about, offering this information to schools. I mean, one way to normalize eating plant-based meals is get them while they're young, right? If kids grow up, thinking that plant-based meals are totally a normal thing, then it's not a transition they have to make later on.
Yeah.
So what sorts of partnerships are you doing to reach out to younger folks?
It's interesting because I think the 8 meals challenge is something that can go to families, and actually kids are the ones that are telling their parents how to be a little bit more eco-conscious. And so I think it is an important part to suggest to school districts, nationally. One of my wishes was for high school students to read this book as well and to have a voice in the mission, in the process. That was another reason that I felt that schools should be involved in imperfect environmentalism so that they too can participate on a bigger level and get the kids involved. And that's how actually all those water fountains you guys saw, we were working with the students to make that change happen, because when the students speak up and the students get involved, that's when the change happens very quickly.
Definitely. One question, and this is actually circling back to our last month's meeting, which is when we hosted some speakers who were focused on rebuilding sustainably. Are you part of efforts to rebuild the Palisades in a sustainable way? Last month, we were talking about passive house construction, building houses that are both more fire resilient and more energy efficient.
Yes. I mean, I wish I could tell you that the Palisades was in a place to be talking about that. At this moment, what I'm seeing is the community just trying to figure out how to clean it up. But I will 100% be involved in any way I can be in a more, in a bigger way for the rebuild. I would love to be there on that conversation.
Yeah, we feel like it's really important because it's a chance to, come in and make a whole sweep of the area rather than having to, retrofit homes. If you can actually just build them the right way from the ground up, it's so much more efficient.
For sure.
So there are a couple questions about, changing things more systemically. Zina's asking, how do we change the food pyramid? That's what we all learned in school, right? The food pyramid. And Joanna's asking, what about food magazines, food networks? How do we get them to start focusing more on offering, 40% recipes that have no meat?
Yeah. I mean, these are all exactly where the mission is right now. And right now we have, Ariane who's here with us tonight as an executive director for us to really drive those things. Like, how deep can we get the 8 meals movement? Where can we infiltrate society? In what vessels and what avenues? And like the Food Network has always been on my mind that, when you look at a menu, just an interesting stat, when you look at a menu and there's a vegan section, people are much less likely to order those meals, those options. If they're interspersed within the rest of the menu, they are much more likely to be ordered, because once again, we're talking about labels and a section of the menu that, oh, I'm not a part of that. So what I'd like to see is for a regular show on the Food Network to talk about plant-based meals without it really being talked about necessarily. It should just become a part of, this is how we also cook sometimes. So that's my wish, and my mission is to really infiltrate the Food Network perhaps without it being like, hey, let's have a vegan show, because that will immediately cut out 97% of the population. As we know, 3% are going to watch that. So
right. And there's, vegetarian cooking magazine, but what we need is all the food cooking magazines to have a portion of, plant-based recipes.
Let's not bring too much attention to it. Let's just mix it in and add it to be something that, oh, and sometimes you can make these meatballs with eggplant and it's delicious. And you don't really have to talk about the fact that it's plant-based and get people to be turned off or afraid of the label.
All right, I'm going to ask you what your favorite vegan substitute products are for like milk or butter, what that things people need to swap out. What are your favorite substitutes?
The way that this whole thing began for me to like really start small again was coffee. I loved almond milk in my coffee. I mean, I loved milk in my coffee back in the day. And I just started to switch it to almond milk. And before I knew it, I was like very happy with an almond milk coffee and I didn't even miss it. And it's so it was just that habitual behavior of just that small little thing. Later on, I started to notice that, oh my God, you can make a tuna sandwich with chickpeas and it's incredible. Or, something to do with salad and some really good lentils is delicious. And the key factor for me is like, can I stay full on this? That's the question for me all the time. And so learning about those options, and then my all-time favorite is anything like Indian food that's plant-based with coconut milk or tofu. It's like indulgent, but it's amazing and I love it so much. So I don't feel like I'm missing anything at all for it. And I feel that swaps, like little swaps here and there to start with, and then you start to say, oh, I could try this out too, and maybe I'll try that, or it's not as bad as you think.
Oh, we have two people asking for cheese recommendations.
There
What
is
is the good vegan cheese?
Oh, I have to get you a name of one, but there was an event we went to, and this woman had brought her she's a cheese company. It was unbelievable. Like everyone was like fighting for the last bit. So let me find out the name again. I will get back to you guys because that is actually my all-time favorite cheese, and I wish I could remember it right now, but there's no question about it. You will be so surprised.
All right, and Kat is suggesting Rebel cheese. I don't know that I've seen that one. I'm gonna have to look for that, Kat. Sounds good. What about coming from Francis? Can you compare, vegetarianism versus veganism in terms of impact? Like, what if people cut out the meat but not the dairy?
So I think the dependency on the cattle industry is a big issue. Okay, so that's like number one. I think if I had to say, I would say please, eat a vegetarian diet over one with animal products. There's no question. But it is still a lot of impact on the planet to have that kind of, the dairy farmers, all of those are huge operations that are really trying to, probably just if we just get away from all of that is the issue for me. Jane Goodall even says like if my chicken in the back lays an egg, I'll eat it, and she's fully vegan. So she feels like if there's the impact for her is more important than something like that. So I really think, it's a personal decision, but that's something that is why specifically University of Michigan was speaking about a fully plant-based diet for that impact to be made.
Makes sense. Makes sense. All right. We have not, Vivian's asking if there's a list somewhere of like substitute plant foods for animal source foods. Do you keep a list like that on your website, like some sorts of recommendations or?
I haven't, but what I do recommend for me is I personally find that whole foods plant-based is where I like to go. So if I can have, lentils in place of chicken on a salad, or if I can have, a whole foods plant, so the products like the fake meats or those things like that, that's not where I put my energy in because it's expensive and it's very processed. And so for me personally, that doesn't work. As far as the list goes about different cheeses and those types of things, I find that if you explore in your market, I haven't really been the type to like do well with things like that. So I try to stick with the whole foods plant-based as much as I can. There is a really good cashew yogurt that I've been addicted to that I have with granola, that I love so much. And so I have now 3 or 4 that I really love. Even Trader Joe's has a great one, so they're getting to the point where these options and these substitutions are really, really great. And it makes it a lot easier for you to be able to be successful. Again, like a little avocado toast, that's an amazing breakfast right there. So I think that there's a lot of whole foods options that we might want to just try to find a little bit more readily, and then go into those alternatives. For me, again, that's just my opinion.
Agreed, agreed. And it's sort of easier than trying to, find exact substitutes sometimes.
Exactly.
All right, if we have not managed to answer your question, you can give me a little raised hand symbol or re-enter it in the chat now. Michelle, did you have any final Any final questions on your end?
No final questions. I just want to say thank you so much, Sheila. It was just so wonderful having you here tonight. We really enjoyed hearing you speak. And again, for anyone out there, definitely check out her book, The Imperfect Environmentalist, and download the app. It's great fun.
Yes, so the app is currently available for iPhones and will soon be available on Android. Is that correct?
Yes, it was on Android, and then there was just a new compliance thing that we're trying to rectify, and then it'll come back on. So it's it should be there back up shortly. Once we do have it, we can let you guys know. But for now,
Okay.
it's on the iPhone.
We had one more question from Polly about, is it really difficult to get enough protein on a 100% vegan diet? Like, how do you manage kind of making sure that you're meeting all your dietary requirements?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of studies out there that you can absolutely get what you need from a fully plant-based diet. What I recommend to people is, again, start with the 8 meals, see how that feels, see how you do with that. You know what I mean? It doesn't seem it doesn't seem as difficult as a fully plant-based diet, I think. And it really allows you the flexibility and the freedom to know that that's my marker, that's what I have to work on. I really recommend this study as well for people to take a look, especially with this group who are kind of, really in it, to see what it really talks about. And that's all linked on our 8 meals website as well, and you can see it. And they even have further studies on, the proteins and everything from plant-based meals from one of the authors that if you just go into it, you'll start to see references to the other studies as well. You can get all that information.
Thank you so much for that reference. Well, I would like to thank you for being here. I would like to thank Michelle and the rest of the programming committee for bringing you here and sharing this with us tonight. And now is the fun part where I invite everyone to unmute for a moment and give Sheila our thanks and applause for being here.
Thank you so much.
Excellent.
Thank you
So much,
Sheila.
That was terrific.
Terrific.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Terrific.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
You
Very
guys are too
inspiring.
kind.